Let me explain. I'm prepared to give you $500 for that
Bitcoin.
Not so fast. I'll give you $1,000 for such a
Bitcoin.
I'll give you $100,000 in cash for said
Bitcoin.
Sir, I'll give you $1 million for that.
Bitcoin.
At Top 5 Cryptocurrency, we drop a new video every day. Be sure to smash the subscribe button. Also, if you'd like to diversify your income, the link will be in the description below. Bitcoin rebound to $18,000 after crucial support level holds. What's next? Bitcoin has seen a tremendous run, particularly since September, with the BTC price surging from $10,500 to $18,400, a rally of 75% in less than 3 months. What's more, since March, BTC has gained almost 400%, making it the best performing asset of 2020, and like catching many investors completely by surprise. Let's look at the chart to see whether a current rally is sustainable and if a reversal should be expected in near term. The weekly chart of Bitcoin shows a massive run in the previous period as the region around the all-time high is being tapped. A clear resistance zone is marked around this all-time high, and thus may serve as a trigger for investors to take some profit off the table.
Are we living the fancy life yet, SpongeBob?
Not yet, Pally. First we gotta spend all the money.
But what are we gonna spend it on?
Hmm.
Oh!
More importantly, however, it is that the 1.618 Fibonacci extension was also reached. The Fibonacci tool is a powerful indicator to mark potential tops and bottom, and the 1.618 level is arguably the most substantial. Currently, there are multiple arguments for a potential correction, including the Fear and Greed Index near a record high. There are several key price levels to watch if Bitcoin corrects before reaching $20,000. The first level of interest for traders can be found at around $16,000. The next level are at $13,500 and $11,600. The total capitalization of cryptocurrency have arrived at the next and final level resistance zone before potential all-time high. $500 billion is likely to be a significant hurdle to overcome. Remarkably, Bitcoin price is now just 10% beneath its all-time high and has already broken its all-time high market gap. Meanwhile, the total cryptocurrency market is still down 35% from its all-time high. This shows that Bitcoin is currently in the spotlight. Altcoin will most likely begin to play catch up later. However, if the cryptocurrency market starts to correct and the most likely area of the support resistance S&R flip is around $380 billion to $400 billion, this level hasn't been back tested yet, as an S&R flip here would certainly be a bullish sign for more upside. Historical data tells a lot about market cycle. Until now, the fourth quarter of 2020 is showing many signals that are similar to previous years. One of them is the increase in Bitcoin dominance over the past weeks, which has risen to over 66%. As long as Bitcoin is in the spotlight, altcoin will not perform well. And if Bitcoin correct, then altcoin are likely to drop even more. However, the moment for altcoin to shine may be getting closer by the day. The key indicator to watch for is strength of Ethereum. Price against Bitcoin and whether Ethereum and BTC has bottomed.
Don't ever say we going down to 1K, but Mr. Novogratz say we have
On the next update, Ethereum hit $500 for the first time since June 2018, outperforming Bitcoin YTD year to date. Ethereum has returned to $500 for the first time in more than 2 years on November 20th, as altcoins slowly stage a comeback from performance. Data from Cointelegraph Market Coin 360 and TradeView show Ethereum briefly hitting the psychologically significant barrier in Friday, trading before a rejection hodl process. Despite being capped at roughly 6% daily gain at press time, Ethereum achievement delighted traders who note overall in 2020 the largest altcoin has outperformed even Bitcoin. Year-to-date returns stand at 284% for Ethereum and 155% for Bitcoin. Versus the pit of its price low in mid-March, just after the coronavirus induced cross-asset crash, Bitcoin was still the strongest player at the time. Ethereum traded at just $117, making Friday level an increase 327%, while Bitcoin gained a 411%, $3,600 to $18,420. Alongside the visit, Ethereum 1st June 2018, other major altcoins also show a sign of life, notably Litecoin, which with 12% gain outperformed Bitcoin on a day, and the only major altcoin to outperform Bitcoin in the past months by 7%. Will the US outlaw Bitcoin? Then Morehead and Novogratz address top crypto concern. Let's get into the interview.
Okay, so on to the show today, and it's another banger of an episode, and I am joined by veteran investors Dan Morehead and Mike Novogratz. So Dan was on the show in April, and we started talking about what the coronavirus meant for the economy and Bitcoin, and so much has changed since then. And I don't think anyone really knew what the impact of the pandemic would be back then, but Dan predicted that this would be Bitcoin's coming of age, and he's kind of being proven right. The economic impact has definitely highlighted the importance of Bitcoin for many, and corporations like MicroStrategy and Square have made big moves in the space. It looks like Dan's prediction was super right. So I was keen to get Dan back on the show, and I really wanted to also get Mike on for the first time because it's been a long time coming. We did cross paths on a conference once, an online one where I interviewed him. But when I found out they were buddies, I knew I wanted to get them on together. So we did. We got stuck into macroeconomics, the institutions buying Bitcoin, and what they're going to be expecting from Bitcoin over the next couple of years. It was really great to sit down with both of them. I hope you enjoy it. If you've got any questions, you know you can reach out to me. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Outside of that, out on Defiance, episode 2 of Chaos is out. That is called Follow the Leader. And with that series, we're looking at kind of chaotic political situation in the US right now. Pretty fitting. That's available at defiance.news. Outside of that, have a great week, and I'll see you all soon. Good to see you again, Dan.
Yeah, great seeing you. I apologize for the delay. Sorry.
It's okay. And good to see you again, Novo. This is our second time, but like your first time on the biggest Bitcoin podcast in the world, which is a bit of a delay. But
There you go.
I was Dan. Did the interview with Novo recently on the BlockFi event, and he talked about you two knowing each other, and I was like, right, I've got to get you two together. What's the background?
Well, we went to Princeton together, and Dan had Dan has a beautiful wife, and I used to call her Big Devin because she was a lot taller than me, and I would flirt with her, and she would just give me the Heisman. And I was like, who are you dating? And then it was this guy. And so I met him at Princeton, and then at Goldman Sachs, and then we both got sent to Tokyo. And so we lived about a block away from each other. He was at Bankers Trust. And then he was a hedge fund guy. I was a salesman, so I covered him. Then he switched to Tiger, and I covered him. And then he became a macro portfolio manager, and I was as well. And we worked together when he started the first version of Pantera. So it was a long and windy road, 33 years.
Wow. Since I was a small child. Dan, give me a story about Novo.
This is professional broadcast, right? So I'll keep
You said what the hell you want. I don't care.
No, it's been fun. We've been bumping into each other so many different ways since we were 18 or whatever, and it's still the same. We're still doing the same thing together, investing in crypto. We've co-invested in a ton of deals together. We've had some good times, some bad times, and it's been a blast. I do remember I was driving down the street in Tokyo. I had a Mazda Miata, because you had to have a Japanese car in Japan, and I saw some guy out of the corner of my eye in a Princeton sweatshirt sitting on this stoop of his apartment, and I back up, and it's Novo moving in that day.
The best part of the story is when we started looking at Bitcoin, I called Dan because we were thinking we wanted to get in at Fortress. We wanted to get in, but we didn't have the expertise or the time.
And Dan was, family officing at that time. We're between jobs. And I called, I said, Dan, look at Bitcoin. What are you thinking? 2 weeks later, he called me back. He said, dude, it's going to change the whole world. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And he was just so ecstatic about it. And I had looked at it as a speculative thing. And the God honest answer is, we started buying it. It was in the 90s, $95 or something. And I would have probably put in about 1/4 as much as I did. But I said, how much are you going to put in? And Dan put in a big wedge of capital. And at that point, Pete Brigger and I, who are the other two amigos of the threesome, Fortress had done well. We were certainly wealthier. And we were like, damn, if he's putting that much in, we have to at least put $1 more than him. And so, in lots of things in investing, if you get in at good levels early and you put a lot in, it makes the whole game a lot easier. And so I was talking to Pete about it. I was like, if we didn't buy that, we bought like 90,000 coins between the three of us back in 2012. And,
Holy shit.
We weren't piking around. But if you'd done a lot less, if we'd all done a third of that, you'd have made a third as much money probably, because it's harder to, you feel like you miss things. You never really miss things, but you feel like you do. So I owe Dan a lot for my Bitcoin fortune.
Yeah, it's fun. My brother had introduced me to Bitcoin in 2011 and even gave me some from the Bitcoin faucet. Remember, Bitcoin was so unpopular that Gavin Andreessen was giving them away for free. And, I read about it, and I have some libertarian interests, so I thought it would be really cool if it happened, but I didn't actually do anything. And then Mike and Pete called, and I came in for a coffee, and I essentially never left. It was so fun. The coffee went for like 4 hours, and then they were like, hey, you can use this office right here, and I'm still actually physically still there, and they're about 7 years later or whatever, so, it's been just such a fun run.
Who's the bigger drinker?
That'll be me. Dan was all right, actually.
I go in spurts.
Probably can drink more than me, and I think I've probably more days.
All right, well, listen, look, we've got loads to talk about. Obviously, you guys invested early. Very happy, probably with your investments now. Quite an incredible year we're having. Actually, firstly, can we just talk about politics? Because obviously I'm a Brit looking in on your country right now. And Novo sat there with, is that like Joe Biden shampoo behind you?
It's my Joe Biden water bottle right there.
It looks like a shampoo bottle. So, kind of crazy situation going on. Like, what's going on, man? Tell me what's going on.
Listen, Donald Trump is a very strange man, period. And he, pre-election, was seeding doubt about the fairness of the election for this exact reason that if he lost, he wanted to be able to argue that it was a cheated election. He talked about Obama winning in 2012 as a cheated election. Even when he won in 2016, he talked about all the cheating that went on. Hired a commission of Republicans. They looked at it and they said there was no systemic cheating. And it's the same thing going on today. The results are in. They will not be overturned. This is kabuki theater for Trump to make himself feel good, probably to get some leverage as he gets ready for his next chapter in life. I think it's dangerous for the country. The markets are telling you, the equity markets, the bond market, the currency markets are telling you, don't watch the sideshow. Biden and Harris are proceeding with the transition team. And so I think this is literally like the last crying of a little baby in the corner. But, it's embarrassing as an American, right? You've got overseas people looking at, we self-righteously told people how to run their elections so many times. Oh, we'll send advisors, and now we've got, this chaos. But I don't think you should really pay attention from a market's perspective.
Right, okay, fair enough. Well, I'm the only thing I'm invested in is Bitcoin anyway, and I guess for you guys, you're both long in the tooth investment. You talked about Goldman Sachs. Dan, is there anything more exciting than Bitcoin right now as an investment? And every time you invest in other things, you're always like, shit, I just should have put that in Bitcoin.
This thing is like eclipsing everything out there. For the next 20 years, I think blockchain will be more interesting than any other investment. And for a while, Mike used to keep calling me and say, "Hey man, what do you think about the Brazilian real?" Or something. I'm like, dude, I can't think about anything else. It's 100% Bitcoin. And back on the election, I do think it's important. The divided government with a Democrat in the White House and the Senate controlled by the Republicans really puts all the heat on the Fed. It's the last kind of functional thing out there. And so I think the Fed's going to keep expanding its balance sheet. And that's going to be great for things you can't quantitatively ease, like gold or Bitcoin or even real assets or timber or whatever. Anything that you can't print more of is going to be hugely advantaged by the current state of the U.S. political situation.
And I also feel like I'm less worried about the regulatory side these days. I don't think we're in that phase anymore of will it be banned? Will it be, will they regulate it out? Yes, there might be high regulations, but I think we're beyond that now. I also think like things like what's happened with MicroStrategy and Square investing in, I feel like we've got this almost like this moat that's kind of protective moat that's been built around Bitcoin. How do you feel about that, Novo?
I think you're right. Listen, with you saw Stan Druckenmiller. Dan and I were macro investors. We were pretty good. Stan Druckenmiller is a god. Like he literally is the god of macro. 30%, annualized over 30 years, no down years. And I tried to get him into Bitcoin plenty of times. We're in the same fantasy football league, and there was now not enough liquidity. There was always a reason not to. And the fact that he came out publicly on TV and said, "Hey, I'm into Bitcoin. Not as much as gold, but I'm into Bitcoin," is a monster statement. Because when you get him in, Paul Jones in, so many other kind of prominent investors in, there's no longer any stigma to being in. And as you get them in, and as you get, Fidelity doing custody, you get all these institutions start coming in. They've got a vested interest, and they know all the people in charge, And so you get the money class involved. It's harder for the regulators to just say no. It's politically unpopular, right? Bitcoin is owned by, I don't know how many Americans, 100 million people globally. And so I remember when they tried to ban it in Korea, and the next day there was a giant protest at the Blue House in Korea. And I think it feels similar here, And so I do think the chapter has, the page of the book has shifted. It's not means, you're going to have all green lights on regulation. We're watching really carefully who the next chairman of the SEC is. Really, the SEC and the OCC are the two big jobs. And Secretary of Treasury, also important, not necessarily from a regulatory perspective, but from a tone perspective. And so we'll know a lot more in a month. But there's been some good names getting kicked around, and so we'll see.
I was going to say, that I think Bitcoin's reached escape velocity, right? There was a time when regulators or even maybe, a monopoly of banks or whatever could have shut it down. It's now way bigger than that. And I think one of the big announcements was when China announced their version of it, right? It's game on now. Somebody is going to build a blockchain-based payment system. China's going to build one. Bitcoin has one. There's going to be some others. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out.
But what's interesting, the coronavirus in some ways was, brought prosperity to the crypto world. It did in two ways. It gave a huge tailwind to the macro story around hard assets like Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin as a macro instrument is more relevant today because of the macro story that came from Corona and the Fed's response. But just as importantly, it wildly accelerated the digitalization of everything. And, you saw when PayPal got in, PayPal's got 330 million customers, right? They're the largest bank by customer. I think they're not by deposits. Every single financial institution now is saying, hey, things are going to shift. And so from their wealth management platforms, I need to offer Bitcoin because my customers are demanding it. But from the financial infrastructure piece, right? Most likely Ethereum is the beneficiary because things are going to get built on the Ethereum network, most likely. But you're going to see stable coins out of the US, out of Brazil, out of almost every country. Some will be like China, central bank issued and run by the central bank. I think in the US, you'll see multiple people issue stable coins. But as we move to a digital wallet world, it just makes Bitcoin accessibility so much easier. I think the most important stat to watch over the next 5 months is PayPal's, how much Bitcoin transacts on PayPal, because it's going to skyrocket. And then you think about who's coming, the Novi wallet from Facebook, 2.5 billion new wallets. Pretty soon, every person on the planet is going to have a freaking wallet where they keep some portion of their money, their Bitcoin, their money, pretty soon their tickets and everything else. And so that rebuilding process that we talked about in 2017 is happening. And now, the ball's starting to roll downhill. And so, bullish.
Yeah, that PayPal thing's a good point, because we've seen how much business that Cash App has done. And we know how much of the Bitcoin that Barry's buying for Grayscale. As more of these entrants come in, it's just a real kind of shock on the supply. I guess you've looked at that as well, Dan.
Yeah, so, the Cash App itself has taken up 40% of all the newly issued Bitcoin. And
Insane.
We're just at the beginning of this. So, when there's a lot of pundits out there that try and figure out the value of Bitcoin and use all these really complicated models. But it's pretty simple. If you're taking away 40% of the supply and you have increasing demand, the price goes up. And the big advantage to PayPal and Robinhood and Cash App, it's just so easy to get in now. And if you think back to the last bull market in 2017, people were trying to get into the markets, but it was a real pain in the ass. It took a week. You had to take a selfie with your passport and send it to Coinbase or Bitstamp or somebody and wait for their massively overloaded people to open up your account and get your money in. And now there's 350 million people that have an account that can just put Bitcoin in straight away.
But Peter, what's also interesting is, Dan hits on a great point. Bitcoin's not easy to buy. It's getting much easier to buy for young people, right? Every young person has those apps. But for our age, Dan and I actually are younger than we look in spirit, but for our peer group, from 55 to 75, right, the baby boomers, most people don't. And they call their broker at E.F. Hutton or Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley or maybe E-Trade if they're that, online. And you still can't buy crypto at any of those places. And so one of the big accelerations you're going to see in the next 18 months is every one of those institutions is going to have a crypto offering, a Bitcoin offering. They're going to start simple. And so, Bitcoin would be a lot higher already if it was easy to buy. And so, we both have businesses trying to cater to institutions to make it easy for them to buy. And it's a pain in the ass. But our pipeline went from a trickle to, it's not a gusher yet, but man, it's becoming one. And that all happened in the last 6 months. Quite frankly, I was frustrated as heck with the institutional adoption last November, December. I fired some people. I tightened our belt. We were burning money. And it all shifted in April. And now I can't hire people fast enough. And I think, we're a microcosm of what's happening. And so I think really you're going to get these turbocharging forces. You're going to get easier access from all these wallets. And then you're going to get the baby boomers who are finally getting in. We just did a capital raise for Galaxy, and one of our investors was the New Zealand Super Annuity Fund. Like the thought of having, the big, sovereign pensions invested in Bitcoin 5 years ago was a pipe dream and a fantasy from, we talked about it. God, I can't wait till one of the central banks buys it, or like all that's happening now. And, Michael Saylor did his bit, I think, he gets Rookie of the Year. I was trying to figure out who gets Rookie of the Year. Michael Saylor, he gets my award for Rookie of the Year. Paul Jones is in there. He's maybe a runner-up as rookie. But like as each of these guys go in, you're triggering a new asset, a group of purchasers. So now corporate treasuries are all thinking about it. I got an email today from another corporate treasurer to talk to him about it. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Movements happen 1, then 2, then 4, then 8. But we'll look back in 2 years and be like, dude, that guy was a pioneer. So I think you're going to see adoption on so many different fronts.
Another interesting thing, I was chatting to a guy yesterday who runs a fund, and he said to me, we're just about to pull the trigger on Bitcoin. We should be making our purchase by January. And I was like, huh? You're about to pull the trigger, and then from that point, it's a 2-month turnaround to make to actually make the purchase. So in my head, I was firstly thinking, well, you might miss some action between now and then. But then I was thinking, well, that'd be a great question for you guys. Like, Dan, what's the kind of thing that's gonna? Why would it take 2 months to get to that point?
Yeah, I know that you and I are drinking the Kool-Aid, and that seems like an eternity. But this is going to be a multi-decade trade, and someone gets in January next year, it's going to look like a visionary 10 years from now, right? Like,
yeah, of course.
It's commonly said that it took the internet 20 years to happen because it kind of took 20 years to get Google and Facebook from the browser, but it took 20 years to get to the browser, right? Like TCP/IP was from the 70s, so we're just still in the really, really early innings of this thing. And like Mike said, 100 million people have it, and so we think that's awesome. But there'll be 6 billion people with it in 20 years, and getting from here to there is going to be it's a great trade. And like Mike said, when we originally got into the trade, we felt like we missed a huge chunk of it because it had been running from 2011 to 2013, and people get it now. It's been running for a while, but when we look back 10 years from now, you probably won't see these prices on the chart. It's such a asymmetric hockey stick type trade that
I repeat to myself before I go to bed every night. There are only 21 million Bitcoin. There'll ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It's like my mantra as my meditation thing. Like, there's really less than 21 million. It's probably 2 million or 3 million have been lost, right? And so you really have a definitive supply of something that is now seen as value, right? What's huge about Bitcoin is it's not the technology, it's the social construct. I got in an argument with Goldman Sachs' strategist about 5 months ago, who's a good friend of mine, right? When she wrote that negative report on Bitcoin. And I was like, she was like, well, what makes something a store of value? I said, well, enough people say it is. And I was like, who's next that you need? Like, do we need Alan Greenspan to bless it? Do we need Ben Bernanke to bless it as a store of value? Like, I don't know. I trust Stan Druckenmiller and Paul Jones and Abby Johnson and Pete Brigger and Mickey Melker. And, I know 30 billionaires who made their money outside of crypto that are big Bitcoin bulls. There's probably a lot more than the ones I know. And so both the little guy, the middle guy, and the big guy, in terms of financial clout, all have decided that this is a store of value. And so now I think the network effect just works. So in the first 4 years, I was a big trader. I sold and I'd buy, I'd sell calls, and now I'm just a hodler. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, Mike, do you remember that was my first line to you when you called and you said I'm trading Bitcoin? I'm like, dude, that's called gambling. Short-term trading back in, especially 2013, there was no data, there was nothing. But the thing I love about the negative, there's no intrinsic value people that rag on Bitcoin is the intrinsic value of a Jackson Pollock's $40, right? There's some house paint and some canvas, but it's a scarce thing that has a 7-year track record of appreciating and being a good store of value. So Bitcoin only has a 12-year track record, so it's not as good as a Jackson Pollock, but 20 years from now it will be.
I tell you, I saw Jackson Pollock at the museum, and I was like, damn, I'd love to own one of those. And I tried to Google how expensive they are, and they're too expensive to own right now. Bitcoin needs to go higher.
I think if Bitcoin hits 100K, I think you can get yourself a Jackson Pollock.
I tell you what, I'm looking at the prices right now. I tweeted that I was going to get a moon tattoo on my arm when Bitcoin hits the old highs, and I think it might be this year.